Hey everybody, happy Friday. Welcome. We're live for another stream today. We're going to be doing part one of our farming village series. We're going to be making a farming village not too dissimilar from the one that you see right here. Hey Alice, glad that you are here. Some of my favorite people already here. As was mentioned, we're going to be making a farming village, one not too dissimilar from the one that you see on the screen here. In part one, we're going to be focusing mostly on terrain and putting down the roads to make the general layout. So, because you always build from the ground up, right? You create the terrain first, then you would build the town. It doesn't make any sense to make the town on top of nothing, right? So you always start with your terrain and build your way up. Now, if you do like this map, it is available to be cloned for personal use. I've put that link at the top of the chat. Feel free to clone and edit that for your own personal use. So definitely go check that out. We're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. I'm going to go ahead and create a new map. It's the watercolor city style. I'm going to have my video, my editing resolution be at 4K so that I have that nice crisp look in the editor so nothing is blurry, easier to edit with. Remember, if you have a lower end machine that you maybe try using 2 or 3K, or if you have a weaker internet, just bring down the editing resolution. Also, if you have a nice end machine or you're noticing that from the 2.0 release that you've been having some trouble with loading or getting 4K exports or anything like that, make sure to check your hardware acceleration. Okay, turn that on or off to see if that will help with the performance, okay? All right, let's go ahead and get the name first. We're gonna call it a farming village. You know, actually, there is something I wanted to mention real quick, actually. Just a quick announcement, actually, in notifications. There is a new Catan contest that's coming out. So it's called the Cities and Nights, and we're making a watercolor city style. Another reason why we're kind of making a village here is just to kind of give it a little tribute to that. So we're definitely going to be looking forward to the contest. Okay, so don't forget to go check that out. All right, we'll go ahead over to my folders here, open this up, create new map, watercolor cities, 4K, and then farming village. I'm just going to use the basic landscape. So we'll go ahead and create the map, jump in, let this load up. And as mentioned before, you should always start with the terrain first, right? It's hard to set up a village unless you have some kind of terrain to build on top of. And I have a couple methods that I use to kind of help me when putting together terrain. And it's this rule of contrasts, right? Contrasts is the trick to making things interesting. So a good example, when you're starting your terrain, is to think about contrasts. And the biggest contrasts, or a couple of them, are water versus land, right? That's a very stark contrast between the water and the land. And also your settlement, whether it be a village, a town, a city, a capital, or whatever it might be, requires a water source, right? So we could make like a pond, a lake, a river, a stream, whatever has fresh water, that is what you want to have. So the beginning terrain, that first contrast is going to be land versus water. And the way that I set this up is I'll fill up the entire canvas with the land tool. That land tool is available within the watercolor city style. And so I'll just go up to the top here and just click fill. And it's going to fill every single thing up with that mask. And you'll notice that it's this land shape mask right here, okay? And then from here, I want to go to my subtract mode. And then now I can go ahead and subtract things as I see fit, right? So what I'll do is I'm going to use the circle brush so that I have this kind of smoother edges as you would expect along the river, right? As the water flows, it carves out the river banks, causing it to kind of smooth out more. So we're not going to use the edgy brush. And also what's helpful is I want to be able to do the river in one pass instead of doing this where I do multiple strokes like this to create that. I don't want to do that. Okay, what you want to do is you want to do it in one stroke, whether it be your pen or your mouse. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll go back here. I'm gonna go to subtract, and I'm gonna create a river right here, just like this. And if you don't like that curve, I can maybe make it a little bit different. Maybe I want to add a little bit more curve like this, or maybe I want to have it like this on this edge, because it's a farming village and my focus is not on a river village, it's on a farming village. And because it's a farm, I want to show more land than water, right? Because the farm is on land. You don't farm in the ocean unless there's some special farming that a special species of yours does on your world that farms kelp or coral or whatever it might be, right? But this is a farming village, so you would expect most of it to be on land, by the way. I see a first-time chatter in there, by the way. Hey, Few 1X was right. Glad that you're here. Awesome. Okay, yeah, I do love, baby, I do love the new uh, layers. It's just so helpful now that you can put brush layers wherever you want, object layers wherever you want. You can put a grid below and above things. You can have as many grids as you want. You can have 3 grids. So yeah, the new layer system is chef's kiss. It's just so nice. Definitely check it out. Also, hey, Keife, glad that you're here. Awesome. Loving seeing some faces in there. So let's go ahead and add that river in there. I'm just trying to get the right curve that I want. And I'm putting it off to the side because the focus should be on the land. I don't know. I kind of want more of a curve than that. Let's try... you know what? Let's try doing this. Let's curve it this way more a little bit. There we go. So we have some land right here that looks good. And you can also resize, by the way. Whenever you, let's say that you're making something and you found out you didn't have enough room or it didn't look right, you can always resize things. And we might end up doing that here. So now that I've added that first contrast, which is water and land, already I've got something nice that I can work with here. Hey, first-time chatter, and another first-time chatter. Oh, yes, you're loving the shorts and the posts? Awesome. Yes, I have been posting a lot of guides on the posts because I know that people struggle with some things. So those guides I put up there so that people can find it easier to put things together. And we will do more shorts. By the way, we're trying to pull shorts out of every single video that we do, so that way people have shorter content. Okay, so the next contrast that you'll find helpful is the first contrast was water land. The second contrast trick is going to be height, right? Something that's high up and something that's further down. And one way to show height is to use like cliffs. You can use strokes for that. Now, I personally am not a fan of the cliffs that are in the watercolor styles. If you go over to the line tool, you'll notice that the path tool is now gone. Don't worry about that because the line tool does everything the path tool did plus more. So if you're a little uneasy with the path tool being gone because you've used the path tool, don't worry. The line tool is the exact same thing, but with so many more options. So if you get discouraged about that, don't worry. The line tool is superior and it still does all of the things that the path tool did, okay? So don't get discouraged. So the way that I do it is that when I go into the catalog, you'll notice there's some cliffs and hills here. And I personally do an cliffa. I'm not sure what a cliffa is. I don't personally care for these myself. I don't know if it's too cartoony, the line work is too thick. It's just a personal preference. It's okay if you want to use these, but I personally prefer the hills from the fantasy battle map style. So if you go into that left panel there where the catalog is, you click on a style, and I'll just type in hill. And you're going to notice there are 2 types of hills. Let me go ahead and go show names so you can see them. There's one called a craggy hill, and there's one kind of rocky hill. And I use both of these. The craggy hill is to represent more subtle transitions in elevation. For instance, like a hill or a slope. A rocky hill represents more of a more vertical like cliff, right? Because it's got those rocky hills to it. So I use my craggy hill for the bottom to show a slight incline, like a hill, and then I add that rocky hill to show a more vertical going up. So that's the style in which that I'm going to be using here. You can mix and match styles, baby, but I find that mixing and matching can look odd because a couple reasons. One, the art is drastically different between each style. And 2, they're set to different scales. So to make everything kind of fit together properly on one map, you have to do a lot of kind of like hacks to try to get all the art to fit together, unless you have what's called like an inset, which is like a little square that has one style inside of it and then maybe another inset with another map style inside of it. But trying to combine all of them is a challenge because of the scale issue and the style issue. It doesn't mean that you can't or you shouldn't do it, because you can do whatever you want. There's no right or wrong. But it is helpful to try to keep some kind of continuity in the art by not mixing, matching the styles, unless you're using filters or you have a creative way of putting it together. So just a heads up. So from here, I'm going to first create my craggy hills. That means the slight incline. So I'll go ahead and select that. And I'm actually going to I'll start with my pen first, because I want to create the embankments first. So what I'll do is I'm going to use my free draw. I'm going to use a pen, but you can also use a mouse. And I'm just going to go all along the ledge, along my embankment, just like that. Okay? Now, if you notice that the hill is facing the wrong way, as you'll notice here, it is facing the wrong way. If you go right here to where it says flip stroke vertically, it will flip it like that. So you'll notice now that the embankment is now kind of facing the other way, right? So I have that first part done. That looks good. Make sure that it's connected. That looks good. Why don't we also do the other side? So let's go back to the pen. I'm going to go over and create the next embankment, or the next bank. There we go. You'll notice again, I have to flip it to face it the right way. There we go. And I'll go ahead and select it like this. There we go. That looks good right there. In fact, why don't we remove the soft, smooth edge and go like this so that line is gone there. That looks more realistic than having this flat, straight lines. So by using these hills right here, I can kind of hide that. And it's okay. We'll maybe do the same thing right here, or we can push it a little bit further away. Maybe we want a little bit of walking along that ledge down here, a little bit of walk space right here, and then this will be a cliff altogether. So let's go push this inward. We'll kind of hide a little bit of that black line. That looks good. Okay, that looks good. Okay. Now that we've done that part, we can start adding the rest of our cliff and terrain. I want to show multiple levels of height. So what I want to do is I want to create this illusion of multiple areas of elevation, because that's the contrast, right? We used water and land. The next contrast is height. Some points are going to be lower. Some points are going to be higher. Okay, so let's do that first. Why don't we also create what elevated section, like a plateau rock, in which the village will be on. So we'll go over this time to the shape tool, because if I'm going to create a circle or an oblong shape, I should use the shape tool. I'm not using the lines, because this shape isn't going to go off of the screen. The shape is going to show up right here like this. So I'm going to use my shape. I'm going to use my pen. Okay. And because I'm using a stroke that isn't a straight wall, it's okay to use your pen for terrain, because it won't be perfectly straight. And so what I'll do is I'll do these single clicks like this. And the trick is that if you want more curve requires more of these nodes, okay? So the more nodes you have, the more curve you have. That's just kind of something that you should kind of keep in mind. So let's go ahead and create this nice curve here. There we go. I'm going to go press enter, add, and now I have another cliff or another hill right here. Maybe we should just put it right along. Let's maybe put it a little bit right here. That's set up. Let's make sure it's also facing the right way. It looks like it's facing the wrong way. So we go back to flip stroke vertically. There we go. That looks good. We can also rotate it. See, I can rotate it. Maybe I want it to fit there. Maybe I want to move it over to here. Maybe I want to put it in this corner right here like this. Then I'll have my tiers of my farms down there. It's up to you, right? So that's the beautiful thing about making a shape, is now you can move it wherever you want that seems best. And I'm going to have it kind of match up along here, right here, like this. Let's actually have it go like this, so that way it's a little offset, not perfectly symmetrical with the rest of it. We'll move it this way. There we go. Then I'm going to copy and paste that exact same shape, and then I'm going to go and switch over to Rocky Hill. I'm going to flip, and this represents more elevation. So if I scale this up, scale it down, and then kind of fit it in like this, I now have a very serious height variation. And the reason why I want my village to be on this mound, this plateau rock, is because it needs natural defenses, right? It's hard for an army or raiders or thieves to climb up the hill to get up to the village, right? It gives the people at the top a better vantage point. It gives them a more defensible position. They can see enemies coming. So whenever you're putting together your settlement, that other thing that you want to factor in besides these rules of contrast is defense. Is it a defensible position? Is it located near water? Okay, so all of those things are important when you're deciding to put together your settlement. Okay, so now that I have this nice elevation right here, I want to add some more elevation as well. Why don't we copy and paste this line and then add that craggy rock again? And I'll go ahead and place that craggy rock. I'll go ahead and rotate it. There we go. And now I have another craggy setting right here. So what you have here is more contrast. On one side of the river, you have a taller cliff. And on the other side, you have a smaller slope that leads up to a rocky outcropping, which is where our village is, right? So now you have those things pieced together. So that looks fairly good, right? So now that I've kind of put those things together, why don't I create a couple tiers? And I also might resize the map because I'm noticing that I don't have much room right here for my crops. This happens, it's okay. So I'll go over here and I'm gonna go to resize the map. I'm going to put on snap to grid so it will snap. And we don't need a lot of this side. So to expand, I'll go ahead and go right here. I'm going to expand this out a little bit more. So now I'll have a little bit of more land on this side. Let's have just a little bit right there. This is going to go beyond your typical landscape, but I want to create enough room for that crop on that right side. So I'll go do that. I'm going to go to confirm. I'm going to turn this toggle off right here. What that will do is remove objects that are going outside of the canvas. I don't want to do that because some of these lines are going outside of the canvas. What it will do is it will save this map and then it will create a new map with the resize. Okay. So we'll let that resize real quick. We'll let that load up and then we'll start working on those tiers for the next part. Hey, first time chatter. Glad that you are here, by the way. Awesome. I love seeing new faces. Okay, so let's go ahead and create those terrains. Oh, there is a known bug right now too, by the way, that I've noticed that after you resize a map, all the shortcut keys go away. If that happens, just refresh the page. Okay, so I'll go ahead and just log in back in here real quick. I'll go back to folders. We'll open this up. This is the one, this is the original right here, and this is the reload. Okay, so I'll go ahead and open that up. Again, if that happens, just simply save the map. If you autosave, it'll autosave and just refresh the page. And I have reported this bug already to the developers. So if it's happening to you, don't worry. I'll go ahead and make sure that that gets taken care of. Okay. All right. So now that we have that together, we can start working on the tiers. And by tiers, I mean, I want to create these various steps of step farming, right? So the way that I'll go about doing that is I'll go back to my regular craggy hill. And then I'm going to create some cliffs or some hills that emanate away from this main body right here like that. So I'll have one right there, another one right here like this, and then maybe another one like this. Okay, in fact, why don't we undo that and let's play around with some different options here. Real quick, let's go ahead and have it connect right all the way to right here like that. There we go. That looks better. Let's put another one right here like that. And we'll put another one right here like that. There we go. Okay, now each one of these represents tiers of a different type of crop. Okay, and what I'll do is I'm going to show that there is an elevation change. Each one of these little hills right here are going to get smaller as we descend downward. So I'll leave this at this size, but I'll select this one, bring the scale down a little bit, and then I'll take this one and bring the scale even further down than that. Oopsie, wrong one. Let's bring the scale down right about there. It's smaller. And then this one right here will go even smaller than that. There we go. Okay. And I'll even move these around so that way we can get a little bit more room. There we go. That looks good. Let's put one right there. And this one right here looks good. There we go. Okay. Just want to make sure that there's enough room. There we go. That looks good. Okay. Move this one a little bit more. Awesome. Okay. All right, so now that we have much of our terrain part is done here, we can add a couple more. Because this is a tiered farm right here, we're not going to put any more cliffs, but on this other side, we could take a bunch of hills and make a bunch of cool looking terrain. So I can go ahead like this. Oopsie, let's not use that size. Let's bring the scale back up. Let's put one right here like this, one like that. And the way that I do this is I'll have one going along the edge, and then I'll create another one that's just rando right there like that. That's separate. Maybe you can even put another one like this. The trick to creating convincing terrain is to not have it to be symmetrical. Let me give you an example. So if I was to kind of put this together like this, you notice that I've got various shapes and various sizes as I'm putting it together like that. This is how you create convincing terrain, by having various cliffs that don't match with each other. They offset. Some are smaller, some are bigger. Terrain is like that, right? So doing that creates the terrain, makes it more interesting. So let me go ahead and remove. I'll restore this stuff. We'll go back. This is the trick to making convincing terrain, okay? So let's go back. I'll go ahead and just add a little bit of terrain here. Let's put a little piece to the pop there. One there and one right there, maybe. There we go. And then why don't we also create another rock outcropping at the top? So I'll go back to my brush, or back to my shape. I'm going to use my pen because the pen works well with these types of cliffs. And I'm going to make myself a small shape right here for maybe where the village elder lives, or maybe that's where the town hall is, right? So we'll go ahead and add that. And then I have one more little shape right here. We're going to flip. And then just to show that it's not quite as big a slope, I'll bring the scale down. There we go. And you can move this shape wherever you want, right? Maybe I want to rotate it and move it right here. Maybe I want to put it there. Maybe I want to move it right here. Maybe I want to put it more central. Maybe I want it to have against the edge here. Okay, so you can do a lot here. So it's up to you where you want to put this at. I'm going to just look around at multiple spots and just see which one looks best. I kind of like that. Let me scale, zoom out real quick and just see which one looks the most visually appealing. I think that looks good, as well as this one. Let's go with, let's see here. Let's see this shape. I kind of like this shape right here. This looks good right here. It's this way the people at the top can kind of overlook and look at the farms. So the highest point kind of overlooks the farm area. I think that makes the most sense. Yes, Keife, you can absolutely do that. You could totally resize the cliffs to show diversity in cliff heights. Yes, and then stack them. And I totally recommend that you do that, because for me, diversity is really how you make convincing terrain, right? Like even these little steps right here, these steps probably right here would have been man-made, human-made. They would have been leveled out for farming, for agriculture. They probably wouldn't have been leveled. They probably would have been leveled out by the inhabitants of this town. So let's go ahead and I'm going to scale this up just a little bit. There we go. Now, once you've finished with all your terrain, what I'll do is you notice that it's all on one object layer. I'm going to rename that layer, and I'm going to call it terrain. Now I have this object layer right here that's called terrain, and I can see I can turn it on and off as see fit. And what I'll do next is, while that stamp layer is selected, I'll go to add layer, new object layer. Okay, now this object layer is going to be specifically dedicated towards the buildings, the structures. And so what we'll call this is, we'll call this structures, buildings, village, whatever you want to call it, right? So we'll call this structures. And that's where all my structures are going to be on that layer. So that way I don't accidentally select any of this terrain while I'm trying to edit the structures, right? So that works out really well. Now I absolutely will not accidentally select that terrain. And the terrain is on a whole separate object layer. It's not a group that's been locked. It is specifically its own layer. Okay, that's going to be super important, okay? So now that I've done that part, I can go ahead and start working on maybe doing some of let's maybe work on the general layout. And the way that I do my general layout is pretty simple. I create the main road, what's called the main carriageway. Let me just check to make sure that cliff is facing the right way on this side. It doesn't look like that it is. 1 second while I flip that. There we go. I had that flipped the wrong way. And I'm just going to do a quick pass real quick to make sure that everything is facing the right way. It looks like it. Cool. All right, little pass there. Structures. Okay, now from here, the paintable layer is going to be called the land brush, right? So that land brush right there, when I go to paint, notice that it paints that, right? If I go to my water brush, it's going to paint that, right? So now you have an understanding about the two brush layers, and you can have as many brush layers as you want, by the way. You don't have to have just one land and one water brush layer. You can have as many as you want. That is entirely up to you, okay? But for now, these two will work just fine, and it will probably be easier for some of you who are still familiar with the 1.0 editor. So I'll try to make it easy by limiting the amount of layers and just keep it simple. So from here, what I'll do is I'll create a road system, right? Everything's about access. How is it that they get to the top of that farming? How do they get down to the tiers? How do they get down to the river? How do they get to the farms? All of that stuff, right? So we need to create what's called a main carriageway. And it doesn't have to be a carriageway. It could just be a main route or thoroughway. And that main route is going to start at, the main route is going to branch out. Part of the main route is going to lead down to the river bank, because maybe they want to do some fishing down there when maybe they have a blight one year and the crops didn't yield very much. There's always a backup for fish that's in the river, right? So that way there's a backup. In fact, I'm still not even 100% pleased with this little thing right here. I kind of feel like I should move it even more. I think maybe it would look better right here. Yeah, I think I do like it better right there. Let's put it there. Getting picky here about what it is I want. Do I like this better? Do I like that better? Hard to say. I don't know. It's a tough one. You know what? Maybe I will stick it on this side, because the logic here is that where the light source is, where the sun goes across, is going to maximize the amount of sunlight that these crops get. So my theory is if the sun goes this way, let me go ahead and real quickly show you the idea about where the sun is going. The sun is traveling like this, at this angle right here. And this way we can kind of maximize the sunlight that's going to be happening to these right here. Notice that if the sun was going this way, that means when the sun got over on this side, it would only be able to get lots of sunlight because of this cliff getting in the way. So you would only have light during a certain part of the day hitting this crop. So having it going this way will maximize the amount of light, the amount of sunlight that's going to be happening on these crops. So just kind of a heads up there, because you don't want mountains or things obstructing the ability for sun to get to those crops. So that's my general logic about where I'm placing a lot of these cliffs, where I'm placing this stuff, okay? Because we're going to probably put some crop up here as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and decide our routes. And what I would do, my suggestion is to choose a fairly bright texture for your road. And there's a reason why, because you want your roads to pop out. Okay, if they're really hard to see, then it's really hard to see the layout of the town. So when you choose a road texture, choose one that's going to be relatively bright. And the brighter that your land texture is, notice how bright this green is. That means for it to contrast properly, the brighter the road texture has to be. Now you could use a darker texture for the road, but me personally, when mud dries out, it gets a little bit lighter. At least that's what I want to show, is I want to show that the mud has dried out, creating this dry like dirt for the road, instead of this dark, wet, more brownish color, which you could do, but I want to make my road bright. Okay, so let's go ahead and create that. First, what I'll do is I'll start at the top, and we can say that maybe there's a route that leads to like right here. Oopsie, wrong layer here. Let's say that I want to have like maybe a route right here, which will change up. Maybe the route goes down to here. Maybe it travels around here like this and then goes over to right here. So there's a bit of our road. And then I want to have roads that kind of lead down to here. So we'll have one road that maybe leads down to there, another road that leads down there to that, and then maybe this is where the main route is. And then that route, of course, is going to follow all along here. All along here as well. We'll create a route there. And then we'll create another route that travels down to here like this, and then leads down to here like this. Another route, and then we'll also create another route that travels down to here and then goes down to here. So now we have these roads that kind of lead all along here, right? So we have those roads. And the next step, something you'll notice is that these look weird. Notice how there wouldn't be a straight line that goes down right there where these cliffs are. Instead, what you'd have is a series of switchbacks. A switchback are these zigzag-like paths that go and follow the contour or follow the ridges of your cliff or your hill, right? It wouldn't be a direct straight down unless that cliff was of a smaller pitch or angle, right? So if you want to do a road that goes straight up, that means it's going to have a very rough slope, and it's going to be harder for people to travel up it. So let me show you how to make a switchback. I'm going to go back to my green, and I'm just going to cover up wherever right over where the cliff is there, and I'll show you how to make these interesting switchbacks that travel here. So let's go ahead and remove that. We're going to go ahead and remove all of these here because that's not how you would travel down these cliffs, right? That's not how that would work. So let me show you how you would go about doing that. So we'll go back to our road texture. We're going to bring the scale down. And what you would do is you're going to travel like this, going down each one and then connect like that, okay? That's how you would make it. But my suggestion is to use a path for this so that you can hide some of the ridge lines. So use a line, go switch over to clip mask, and then from there, I'll go ahead and make sure that I got the right, the size is properly. Let me see how big it is. That's a little too small. Why don't we make it maybe a little bit bigger? Let's bring the size up. Nah, that's still too, let's go with this size. Let me see how big that is. Nope, let's go even bigger than that. Let's go about that size. That looks good. Okay. All right. And then from there, you'll go in like this, and then you'll go ahead and paint in your piece there. Now, I think that's a bit small, so why don't we make it a little bit bigger? Like that, and then why don't we also connect, make sure that it connects right here. There we go. So it connects there. We want to make sure that it connects right there. And then once you've done that, then you can go in with your brush and then paint in your road just like that. My suggestion too also is to blur the line. Go to blur like this. There you go. And now you don't have those hard edges. So now you have some nice switchbacks that actually follows the contours of the cliff itself, because that's what it would look like. Now we just have to do that exact same thing to the other side. So let's also create another switchback that goes up, travels that way, and then leads its way up to there like that. There we go. Now we have another switchback. Let's go ahead and paint that route. There we go. Now we have a nice switchback that goes there. Perfect. And let's do that to every single one. So let's put another switchback that goes down like this and connects to there. There we go. That looks good. We'll go ahead and paint. That switchback looks good. There we go. Let's go ahead and put a little bit of route here, a little bit of road here. That looks good. Okay. All right. Let me go and take a step back and just see what it looks like. There's our main route. That looks good. Why don't we create some more routes that go down the hill? Like right here, there's another piece right here. Why don't we do that one? Let's go ahead and create a route that goes down, travels along here, travels there, and then connects right there. There we go. Looks good. Go back to our brush, and we'll go ahead and paint in our path there. There we go. Now that is so much more realistic than trying to put maybe some stairs or whatever, because that is how usually a lot of trails are dug in reality, right? There are these switchbacks that you go back and forth until you get to the top instead of doing this crazy incline. that would be very, very difficult. So if, let's say that the farmers are carrying up carts of their crop yield, they don't have to do this crazy inclination with their horse or their ox and their cart. They can now go up this more subtle incline, going up these switchbacks leading up. Okay, so that's kind of important there. And we can put a series of these. We want to have a bunch of them. Like one goes there, that looks good. Why don't we also put a switchback that maybe leads down to this shoreline right here? So let's do that. So I'll put a little switchback that just kind of travels along here and then goes like that. And then I can go ahead and paint that. That looks good. That looks good like that. Okay, and then also, why don't we also put some more switchbacks? Because what happens if people want to travel down to these sections? They shouldn't have to take this main route all the way down here to get there. So let's also create some further switchbacks. And I'll put them to where they're close to these switchbacks. So that way I can create a road that goes across. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So there's one right here. So let's put one right here. We'll put one route going down, leading to here. Let's put another one right there, going across, down like this. There we go. That looks good. I'll go ahead and paint those. There we go. I got my switchback. Let's put another one right here. That looks good. Where are my other switchbacks? There's one here. Why don't we put, there's a lot of space right here, so why don't we put another switchback right there as well? So we'll go ahead and put one, let's see here, go down. We'll have it slope down like that. There we go. And we'll connect it to the main route there. Don't worry about making everything perfect. Notice how I've overlapped the road on top of this hill. Don't worry about that. That's detail work for later. For now, focus on just getting the layout and the roads down, because this way you'll have an idea of where to place your structures, and the road will change, by the way, as well. And that's okay if the road changes. You might find a more suitable route. You might place a building and say, oh, I want a route that leads to this. For now, this is just a general idea of how you want your road system to work out. So let's take a look at this. That looks good. That looks good. Why don't we also continue on our switchbacks here? Hey, first day at Inkarnate. Hey, first time chatter. Cronus, glad that you're here. Oh, I'm glad you find the insights helpful. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you mentioning it. I love new faces, so thank you. Let's continue. I notice here that we have a path there. Why don't we also add in another one right here? So this kind of connects right there, so it makes sense to have it maybe go travel down that way. And in fact, we can have a split. Why don't we have another one that goes down this way? So you have two, right? One that goes down that way and one that goes down that way. And this creates more options, right? Why don't we do it again? Let's put another one that goes that way. So this way you don't have to double back or anything like that. So kind of helpful to have maybe going two ways instead of one way. That makes sense. So let's go have one here along here. We'll have it route down like this. And then we'll create some roads along here as well in just a moment. All right, so now let's create some branching roads where the crops are going to be. So in other words, I want to connect these switchbacks with the other switchbacks that are further down. So why don't I just take a path right here and just go right across just like that. Let's do it again here. Get more of a straight line if I can. One connecting there. Let's have another one that connects there. And what's going to be in between these right here is going to be crops. Okay, so let's maybe have another route that kind of leads right there. So all this is going to be crop right here. Let's put another one maybe. Let's take a step back and take a look at it. A lot of space there, so why don't we put another crop, another line that's going to be there for the road. Let's do the same thing here. Let's have a line that goes across there. Let's maybe have the line go across here. All these are going to be crops. Let's put another one right here. Notice that I'm offsetting them. Notice how I'm not creating a route that goes perfectly across like that. I'm going to offset them a little bit because that offset is contrast, right? If I have them connect like this, now that might make sense to have more access to the crops, but visually speaking, it's more interesting when I offset these lines. That doesn't mean that you have to. You could just make a straight line that goes like this, so that way there's access to each crop, but I'm going to offset them because I think the offsets are more interesting. Maybe some connect and some don't. But I find that offsetting those lines, those paths, will make it more interesting. The other thing that I want to do is maybe continue to add a couple more stuff, like maybe I want to have a route follow along this edge here, like this. That makes sense. I want to have my a road that goes along here so that people can travel along the ledge of that hill. That looks good. And we'll even create another route that kind of goes over to here and connects to that one. That makes sense. There we go. That looks good. And then why don't we also create a route that goes along the shoreline here so we can put some docks. Maybe there's access to a partial dam. We'll put that in there as well. So let's go ahead and create a little road that goes there. Awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look here. Let me take a step back and see how it looks and where we at for time. 40, we got 20 minutes. That's perfect. I think overall, this looks pretty good. We might want to add in a couple more things. Maybe just add that route there. Okay, that looks good. Okay, now from here, I can start painting in some crops. And the reason why I'm going to do crops, and it's before I start putting down the buildings, is because crops will take up a lot of the negative space, and then it will make it look like I'm getting more done. So let me show you how I would approach this. We're going to type in crop, and the way that I approach crops, it really depends. Like you notice that there are these lines in the crops. Those lines, you can have them line up with the direction that the sun is going in, or maybe you want them to be radiating away from the main escarpment or that main hill, that rocky outcropping where the village is. Maybe you want to do that, okay? So we'll start with some different things. And my suggestion is don't use all one crop, okay? Have one crop be corn, have another crop be this brown tilled land, have another crop have some green vegetation of it, have another part of the crop that's being partially harvested, right? Have a part of the crop have maybe some wheat, and then maybe cut some of that crop out and then have some barrels of hay or hay piles to make it look like there's some harvest going on. Again, creating contrast, right? To have it all look like they're planted crop won't contrast very well. But if I have some crops be planted, some tilled, some being harvested, partially harvested, that's going to create this sense of contrast, and it's going to create this sense of something's being done, right? There's villagers harvesting one part of a crop, they're tilling the land, preparing for another crop, they're harvesting another. All of those things make it sound like the village is alive and things are happening, right? And that's a part of that contrast, right? So let's start out by creating some crops that are tilled first. And what I'll do is I'll choose maybe one of these field bare. Let's start with that. And I need to make a decision about which direction I want my crops to be facing, right? So I'll rotate. And I think the logic I'm going to use here is I'm going to have it maybe a couple options here, all facing in a particular direction to maximize sunlight, or for a visual effect, I want to have them kind of all emanating from that hill. So let's go ahead and rotate it to where it's all kind of emanating towards in like this. And I'll fill in this first section. And I recommend using a particular brush, by the way. I recommend using Dirt 2. Dirt 2 is a great brush. I use it all the time. I find it incredibly helpful for painting any kind of terrain. And then from here, I'll go ahead and just fill in this space. And what I'll do is I'll create the outline like this first. I'll create the outline. And then I'll just go in and fill it right up. And in fact, I'll use my mouse for that because there's no pen pressure for a mouse. So I don't have to worry about always having the same pressure. We can do that too. But let's go ahead and fill it in. Our first crop. Let's go ahead and bring the size up a little bit. So it's a little bit bigger. There we go. We'll fill in that first crop. Notice how the lines are emanating away from that rocky outcropping. So step one. Then I'll go back to rotate, and I'll rotate again. Face that way, and I'll do the outline first. Like this. Right, outline, and then I'll go in and fill it in. And then we're just going to do that to every single crop. And for now, I'm going to use just these brown ones for now. I'm going to fill them all in with the brown, and then I'll decide which ones to fill them in with a different kind. It's just to kind of fill in that space and also to save time. Then we'll go back to rotate and we'll do it again. Let's rotate it. And what I'll do is I'll kind of use the roads as a guide for what way to rotate it. So I'll go in here like this and we'll fill in the next one. And don't worry if you go off a little bit because you can always repaint the road. So whatever you do, when you're in these first stages, don't worry about perfection. Okay, you're in the beginning stages. All right, when you think about being perfectionist, save that for the last part near the ending. So it's because that's where your perfectionist part is going to pitch in and be the most helpful. The perfectionism thing doesn't help when you first start a map. And if anything, it impedes your ability to keep going. So save, if you can, save your perfectionism for the ending of the map, because that's when it's going to be the most useful to you. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and continue to fill these in. Where are we at for time here? 45, perfect, great. We should be able to fill in all of these crops in the next 15 minutes. Let's get my rotation back on again. I'm going to use it to kind of line up here. And by the way, you don't have to do it this way. There are so many different ways that you could do your crops. I'm just going to do it this way. You could have them facing different directions. You could have them being different colors. It's up to you, really. There's a lot of different ways to go about this. My way is not the right way. The way that I'm doing it now is not the right way. It's just one way to do it. I'm not a farmer, so I don't know a whole lot about farming. I'm just, right now, my logic here is more aesthetic than it is realistic, and that's the beauty of fantasy. The beauty of fantasy is that you don't have to make it perfect, because guess what? Your players aren't going to tear apart the agricultural setting of your map. They're not going to do that. They're more focused on killing bad guys, looking for NPCs, kicking down doors, harassing NPCs. That's what they're into. So if you feel like it's not realistic enough, don't worry about it. Remember, it's a fantasy map. Just remember that. You're going to save yourself a lot of headache by focusing on more of the fantasy element than the realistic element. Though I will say that realism is a good foundation for the start of a map. It's not necessarily the guiding force or the North Star when you're making a map. Okay? Because you can go down rabbit holes, right? When it comes to science about things like agriculture, science is nuanced. It requires a lot of studying and technical language. It's difficult, right? So my suggestion is only draw some things from science and reality to help build a foundation, and then from there, go hog wild and pump it up with the fantasy. Because to me, that is the best approach. I find that to be really the best approach, because when I try to make it super realistic, I get caught in all this research and rabbit holes trying to make it perfect and make it fit to what it should be in reality, when I realize that I don't need to do that. I don't need to have it based perfectly on reality. That will drive me nuts trying to do that. So it's just my recommendation that instead you focus more on trying to use reality as a base, and then you can expand upon that with the fantasy elements, right? So, and also it's a part of my contrast rules, right? Fantasy contrasts against reality, right? Because they're so distinct from each other. So having fantastical elements and reality elements to your map creates a fantastic contrast. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'm just going to paint in all of these with the time that we have left, and then we will call it good. So I'm just going to fill all these in. Remember, I'm going to change these crops. For now, I just want to fill them in so I have an idea of what they look like, and then we can go to that next step in the next episode. So I'll paint these crops in. It takes a little while to get it. You could also use other brushes and techniques, but I find this one to be the most helpful for me. We'll continue just kind of rotating more and more. Continue filling in these crops. There's so much more that we're going to add to these as well. So we'll get to all that. I'll go ahead and fill this in. Again, don't worry about making it perfect. It's okay if it overlaps or cuts off a road or goes onto a ledge. You're going to end up repainting that anyway, so don't worry about it. Remember what I said earlier. Save your perfectionism for the end of the map process, where it will serve you best. It will kind of impede your ability when you're trying to do it from the very beginning. It's just me personally. Let's rotate a little bit that way, maybe. That looks good. We'll go off screen. It's okay. We're almost there. Okay, just keep filling them in. This will definitely be a 2 or 3-parter because there's so much. I'm actually looking forward to the second or third episode because I have a great shadow and lighting technique that was actually introduced to me by one of our users, Alice. Little shout out to her. All of her stuff is really good, by the way. Absolutely love her work, and I draw inspiration from a lot of users, actually. There's a ton of users who are on our Discord server who are just absolutely incredibly and talented that I absolutely love seeing their work. Okay, let's go ahead and take a step back and just see what we've got so far. So you can see that there's a ton of crop that's already kind of been laid out, and we're going to change all of these. By the way, we'll make them all different. Why don't we go ahead and continue adding in the rest of the roads, and then we'll finish up the crop. So we'll go and put a road right here. We'll put that road, maybe a road that connects right here like this. Now that looks good. Let's put another road right there, maybe. I think that looks good. And then we'll go ahead and fill in our crops. Let's get the rotation right. About that looks good. I'll go ahead and bring the brush size up so I can have a little bit more. Takes up a little bit more room. There we go. It's going kind of slow with that smaller brush size. But now that we got this, there we go. Okay, looks good. Again, don't worry if you overlap and you kind of knock off some of the road. No big deal. Okay, yeah, it's coming along nicely here. There we go. Fill that in. Okay, I think those crops are done. Where are we at for time here? 51, perfect timing. 51, perfect. Okay. I think overall that looks good. I see a lot of comments there in the chat about crops. Yep, they could have a pulley system. There's so many different ways. Yes, a what would be called like a hay elevator. I believe like some kind of like dumbwaiter system. We can totally create that when we get to the more detailed portions of the map, by the way. Let's go ahead real quick. While we still have a little bit of time, I'm going to create some spaces for structures and buildings. And the way that I set this up is maybe I want to have, maybe there's a farming family that's in charge of each section of the crop. Where would I place the buildings? And what I like to do is just carve out a little corner right here like this. And in that corner is where we're going to put some structures, right? Let's say I want to carve out another section right here like this. We'll carve this out. This is going to be another section for maybe some barns, maybe a stable, stuff like that. Let's add another carve out. Let's put another carve out right here. And what this also does is it creates contrast, right? Now I have these interesting lighter shapes that break up my crop. So this is pretty helpful, right? Same thing here. Why don't we create another section right here for like a farming family or maybe a stable. Here's another one right here. Let's create another larger one right here like this. Right here. That looks good. There we go. It's right there too where the switchback is. Where you would kind of make sense, right? It's next to the roadway. Let's put another one right here like this on this side. There we go. And you're going to have some nice areas now to place some structures. I see there's one right here. Why don't we put another one right here, but this time we'll switch it and put it on this side. Like that. There we go. Now we have a nice section right there. Why don't we also just cut this open right there like that? That looks good. And then why don't I take a step back and you can see what it looks like. See, now you have these sections right here to place your building. So think of this as like your barns, your houses, all of that's grain stores, all of that stuff is going to be down there because you do want those spaces, right, for the farms. Because right now the farm's just going to be in the middle of a field somewhere or in the middle of the road. So these little carve outs right here are spaces for the farming houses, for the silos, for tools, for the families where they live, all of those things. So those spaces need to be made, right? So just kind of factor that in. And I can go in here and kind of fix some of these roads here. You fix them up a little bit. That looks good. Why don't we fix that one? That looks good. Okay, so now that we have that, where are we at for time? 54, perfect. Let's just take a step back and look at it and just see all that we've accomplished. And we've done quite a bit. We were able to get all of our terrain done. We'll probably do more terrain stuff later. Like we'll mess with the mask effects because we're going to use mask effects to our advantage to create maybe some depth to our hill. We're going to use maybe some of it to create some white water. You can use mask effects for a lot of things. So we'll kind of go over that. In fact, why don't we, since we have 5 minutes left, why don't we do that real quick? So if you're looking for mask effects, they're generally right here on the land mask. So if you have this little shovel right here with the mask, the land brush, if you right click, it'll say land style. Go and select that. And then here you have your mask effects. One of the first things I'll do is I want my stroke to be white. I'll do that. Let me zoom in real quick. It's a little too, I would say it's probably a little too thick. So why don't we bring the size down a little bit? There we go. Now I have this white kind of edge that kind of represents white water interacting with the edge. And then I also want to take my inner shadow, and I'm going to use that inner shadow to create some kind of incline along this ledge right here. So I'll bring my shadow blur up quite a bit like this. And then you'll notice right away what that does. It creates this darker edge right here. And what that darker edge represents is a slope, right? So if I bring my inner shadow, if I bring the intensity up a little bit, you'll notice that it's going to get a little darker, 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 darker. And I'm using these mask effects to create a slope. You notice how it's sloped now because I used that shadow. Remember, the trick to depth is light and shadow. So if you want to make it look like something is going down, you use a shadow to create that illusion of a slope. And one thing I've noticed is now my road is on that slope. And that doesn't make any sense, right? I don't want my road to be on my slope. I want to have my road be right above the slope. So I'll go ahead and erase this right here. And then I'll redraw my road to where it's all along this slope like this, leading right to that, just like that. There we go. There we go. That looks good. Let's do just a couple more things real quick. I want to create some other access points. Notice how this road leads to right here. Why don't we have a road that goes up? Oopsie. Let's use the pen here. Let's have a road that slopes down to here, and then it switchbacks down and connects to there. There we go. Now we have some better access points there. So we'll have a little road that kind of goes down and then leads down to there. That looks good. There we go. All right. Let's take a step back and just kind of look and see how it looks. I think overall, this looks pretty good. We can add some more roads and stuff to it later and some crops later, but I think overall this looks good. Oop, you know what? I'm seeing a mask effect issue right there. Let's fix that. Let's go back to add. I'm going to cover that. There we go. That looks good. Oh, I see it did it over here too. Let's add that. There we go. Let me just make sure that everything's been added. Everything looks good. Cool. 58. Perfect timing. All right. So overall, we were able to accomplish a ton just within that first hour, right? And the trick to working a little bit quicker, besides having a familiarity with the tool and the stamps, it's having a method, right? By building the terrain first, I was able to kind of put together a convincing landscape for the village. After I put the terrain down, I put down the roads so that way I understand my access points. Now I have an idea of where I'm going to be putting my buildings. I have an idea of where I'm going to be placing trees and other farms and crops. Putting those roads down first gives you a general idea of the outline of where you're going to put the building. So in part 2 next month, what we'll do is we'll start adding down the buildings. We'll start putting things like the most important buildings first, like maybe the village town or the village hall where the elder lives. We want to make sure to add windmills and infrastructure. Once you put down the infrastructure, then you'll start putting down the homes and all of that stuff. So you kind of just build with most important structures first and then move your way down to to shacks and things like that, and then finally down to detail. So you work within an order of operation to make it easier. And you always start with the larger stamps first so that it fills up more of the space. And then once you get towards the end of the detailing part, that's when you'll start placing the smallest stamps like crates, barrels, carts, all of those things. So you start with an order of operation. Big stamps first, small stamps go near the end so that it fills up more space. So that's what we'll be doing in part 2. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. I had fun. I really enjoy this terrain. I think it looks really good. It's convincing. I appreciate all the feedback that people had in the chat about it. Love reading the chat and learning new things. I learned quite a bit listening to what people were saying. I want to also give a shout out to those who helped with the moderating. Thank you so much. I appreciate you answering questions in the chat when I cannot. So shout out to all of you. I appreciate you all. We'll go ahead and we'll see you all next week for next week's masterclass. Okay, please stay safe and healthy. Have a great weekend and merry map making. I'll talk to you all later, everyone. Bye.